I'm here today with the fourth episode of my new podcast, Pug Fireball and Company, which is the short version, the name of my new book about the history of professional baseball in Des Moines, Iowa. My guest today is none other than Randy Wehofer, Assistant General Manager and a former broadcaster of the Iowa Cubs, the AAA affiliate of the Chicago Cubs since 1981. And I should explain that I go back with Randy a little bit in that I was in Keokuk, the editor of the paper in Keokuk was when Randy was in Burlington with the Bees. I would go to many games up there during the season because that was the closest professional baseball team to in Southeast Iowa. And unfortunately, they don't have a minor league franchise anymore. I think they got a college summer bat team now, but it was kind of unique. It was owned, I think, by the community. It was a community-owned team, at least at the time. That's kind of unusual. So let's get started here. Please share with us your background, where you are from, and where you went to school.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm originally from suburban Chicago, the southwest suburbs, in a place called Palos Hills that has very little to itself other than a community college, and everything just kind of blends in that part of the world. I went to college at the University of Miami in Florida, where I was a broadcast journalism major, and graduated from there and did a little bit of talk radio before I got into minor league baseball through the job fair at the winter meetings in December of 1998. My first season in Burlington was 99, and I spent 20 seasons doing play-by-play before I was offered the opportunity to become assistant general manager here going into the 2018 season, and made that transition and continue on here. This is my 25th year working in minor league baseball.
Why did you go to a school in Miami? I'm sure there are other schools with broadcast journalism programs closer to Chicago than Miami, other than I guess you wanted to go where there's warm and sun and beaches, huh?
That was a little bit of it. The temperature did. There's no question I was a better student in February when I got to roll out of bed and put on shorts and a t-shirt and go to class rather than 14 layers. But my I had I had an affinity for the University of Miami baseball team from watching the College World Series as a kid in junior high and my early high school career. And it was more baseball than football for me that kind of heightened my awareness. When I graduated high school in 1993, the Marlins were an expansion team that year. The Panthers of the NHL were an expansion team. The Heat had just started in 1991. And Miami was the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country at that time. And in addition to some of the other things that you had talked about, I had visited there and they offered me some scholarship money and not to play baseball academically. And it felt like the right place. And I figured if I can't get an internship with all that going on, how am I ever going to get started? Um, and I got the lucky part was the student radio station and the student television station were even better than I knew how to research as a senior in high school with nobody in my family really knowing anything about this business. You know, I had decided that broadcasting was the next best thing to playing when I realized I wasn't good enough to play anymore. I got lots of great opportunities, and it was the best fit for me, certainly.
Yeah, I've heard several broadcasters say that that's how they got into it because it was the next best thing to playing. They realized they weren't good enough to make it to professionally to play athletics, but they loved the sport so much that they became broadcasters. So, yeah, that's often a common path. You were in a movie when you were in Burlington. Tell us about that. It was based on a minor league team, I believe, kind of pattern after Burlington.
Yeah. So the name of the movie was Sugar. Um, it came out in It came out in theaters in 2009 after I had come here, but it was filmed in 2007, the year before I left. So I bridged my transition between Burlington and Des Moines. And Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden were a husband and wife team that wrote and directed that movie. They had done a movie with Ryan Gosling. They were just out of New York University Film School. And Ryan was a big baseball fan, and he had read an article about the Dominican academies that the teams had. He was from the Bay Area and was an Oakland A's fan. And he was not aware that that kind of thing existed. And he thought that would make a great movie. The coming of age immigrant story, the baseball backdrop, it combined a lot of his passions for storytelling. So while they were writing and researching the movie, they had reached out to a couple of teams. I think they reached out to Peoria first, and the Cubs kind of said no to giving them any access, ironically enough. We were a Royals affiliate in Burlington. I always joke that as the media relations director in Burlington, I had very little media to relate to, with no television stations in the market and being the size. So I welcomed them, and I helped facilitate some interviews with players after batting practice. And they spent 3 or 4 days. They thought that because of the popularity of Field of Dreams, that Iowa was a good place to create that cultural struggle, but be believable for the audience as a baseball setting and how that all worked. And after their 4 days in Burlington, they came up to the booth in the middle of the game to thank me for helping them out. And I casually said, "Well, if you need a PA guy or a radio guy for your movie, let me know." And Anna went, "That's not a bad idea." And a couple months later, I got a call from a casting director in New York, and they sent me some of the scripts. And our groundskeeper used my home camcorder to film me reading some lines on tape for him. And then they gave me a call and they offered me the part. So I got to film 4 or 5 scenes between Burlington and the Quad Cities. The home stadium was Davenport, where the River Bandits play now. They were the swing of the Quad Cities back then at that time, and it was great. It was pure accident and a little bit of dumb luck, but it was a great thrill to be on the part of that. And I've got my name on IMDb. I signed the waiver. I didn't want to pay the fees to join SAG, so I don't get any royalties. I just got paid I got paid scale for the time that I worked, and I said, "This is, if I'm not convincing as a radio broadcaster, I got bigger problems in my acting career in this role." So I enjoy the heck out of it, and growing up with the name Wehofer, there aren't a lot of us. There's only 4 in the state. They all live at my house, and uh, so as much as it was kind of weird to see my face on screen, but it was really thrilling to see my name in the credits. I thought that was really cool.
Does your family tease you about that, being in a movie, being a movie star?
Yeah, it was. When we went to see it in the theater, we almost got kicked out because my friend kept taking pictures of the screen, which is highly illegal, with her camera things. I had to explain to the usher that no, he's on there, and that doesn't happen in Iowa very often. I don't suppose either uh, in that. So, when the movie came out, uh, my character name was Jack Jeffries. No one ever calls me that. I don't. No one ever refers me to that, but that's what it is in the credits. You never hear that name. Um, so when it first came out in theaters, when I was here and traveling with the team, Chris Robinson and Jeff Stevens were good guys and on the team, and so we'd be in the airport on a layover, and I'd walk by where they were sitting. They'd go, "Hey, there's Jack Jeffries," and I probably got more ribbing from them, which was all fun.
How long have you worked for the Iowa Cubs exactly?
This is my 15th season here. I came here in February 2008, just ahead of the 2008 season.
And you were a broadcaster for how long with the Iowa Cubs?
10 seasons. So I started with Dean Ellis, and then we worked together. And so it was as the team left town for the road trip when the high school tournament was here. Sam and Michael had been talking to me and announced that I would become the assistant general manager. So I finished the 17 season on the air, and then immediately following the season, my first task was to hire my replacement on the radio, and then started in with that process to find Alex and bring him in, and made that transition between the 17 and 18 seasons.
Now the team was in the Pacific Coast League, I believe, then, or most of the time they're in PCL, which meant a heck of a lot of traveling. I don't suppose you miss those days, do you, of traveling to the West Coast and Albuquerque.
You know, I certainly I miss some of the ballparks and some of those things, but I don't miss the 3 a.m. wake up call to catch the 6 a.m. flight for the layover. And you know, I made that transition at a time where my oldest was just starting high school, so personally, it was a good opportunity to be home more as their activities ramped up and got more involved. So I appreciate doing some local guest spots and things like this. And I record all of our commercials to get a little bit of a microphone fix from time to time. But I enjoy this new challenge and this new opportunity. And, you know, I guess if they decide that I'm no good at being an assistant general manager someday, I can go back to radio. But I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I get enough opportunity to write and think and speak that kind of fills that. It was really always more about the baseball for me than it was the broadcasting. I wanted to be close to the game. So that has helped. I never wanted to be the sideline reporter for a volleyball match. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that wasn't. It wasn't just being on the air that thrilled me. It was being part of the story of the season and the game, and being close to the game and understanding and getting to know the players and coaches and learn. That's really what all of that was most important to me.
So you never had any ambitions to be a major league broadcaster?
I did. I got to do a couple of games with Kansas City when I was in Burlington in September. So I got to do a handful of games with Denny Matthews and Ryan Lefevre. I did some spring training stuff with the Royals and the Cubs in my time. You know, but this change I wasn't actively seeking. You know, we had unexpected changes in our front office at that time that led to the need for an assistant general manager, and it was brought to me. And part of that was because of my experience of traveling with the team and dealing with affiliate relations, and not a lot of us in the operation are day to day with that kind of stuff, and it's an important part of our operation and relating to the major league club and the rules and all those kinds of things. So after 20 years of doing it, I felt I felt like I was capable, but I had enough experience to know that I wasn't. The reason I wasn't a major league broadcaster didn't reflect my ability. It just reflected my opportunity. There were only 30 jobs in the world better than mine. And the people that have those jobs rarely give them up as long as they're still alive. And so, you know, at that point in time, an opportunity presented itself, and uh, it wasn't an easy choice, but going beyond just me and what was best for my family and my ability to pay tuition and do all the things that we're moving into now, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, when you talk about longevity, I guess you cite Vin Scully. Gosh, he did it for in his 80s. He did it. Yeah.
Denny Matthews is still doing games in Kansas City. You know, he's got to be close to 80, if not uh, past 80 now. He was their original announcer in 1969 when the team moved from Philadelphia to Kansas City. Uh, and when I was doing, you know, when I would go there to do games in September, you know, and this was 2001, 2002, you know, 20 years ago, some of the people would ask me, you know, we don't know what Denny's going to do next year. If he were to decide that this was enough, are you interested? And I said, yeah. And Denny's still there, and I'm long gone and have changed careers by then. You know, it just doesn't happen very often. And then my comment about, you know, a little poking fun at my, you know, my name and status, you know, to win a major league job, you kind of have to win the press conference in this day and age. And I understood how hard it would be for somebody to trot out Randy Wehofer and put him in front of media and a fan base for somewhere that wasn't familiar with me. And that really narrowed. It wasn't just 30 opportunities. I had no relationships in a lot of major league clubs, and um, I just weighed all those factors. And you know, I'm happy Alex got to do a couple of Cubs games recently. And when they announced that the Marquee Sports Network was coming, that was one of the things I was working toward. I thought that would be the difference between being an anonymous AAA radio broadcaster that the people inside knew, to knowing that we would have to contribute to the content on that kind of station. And credit to him, he has done a terrific job and taken advantage of those opportunities. And it makes me feel good that I was smart enough to see what was coming, but God put me in a different position to help somebody else get that, and then maybe help multiple people get that over the years. But that's an important key for our team, and then for the person who gets to sit behind the microphone for that.
I'm going to talk to him next week, so I'll be sure and ask him about his experience doing Cub games, Chicago Cub games. So, what are you responsible for exactly as assistant general manager?
Um, Kind of a myriad of things. I'm certainly still very active on the sales staff with working with my own clients, but then I also am the leader, the sales manager, you would say, for the team for selling sponsorships and all the details that go on the back of it, and working with our new ownership group on the things that we're trying to do collectively there, and helping to facilitate those communications back and forth. I'm still very active with the team, and talking with the trainers and the coaching staff about travel, and when we're going to bus, when we're going to fly, helping to set those kinds of things. Uh, I'm kind of the most of the full time folks that have started since I have begun has been my process to hire. So I'm the leader of the staff that way in terms of making decisions on who to bring in, and certainly Sam and I talk about what the job descriptions are going to be and the roles are, and but I handle the day to day process of the interviewing and the recruitment, and the identification of talent. Work hand in hand with Sam with the budget, and with our accounting team on keeping track of all the stuff that happens. And then we're all part of the creative process, trying to come up with ways to engage fans and bring new people to the ballpark. And I try to make sure I'm bringing those ideas to the table, and then use my experience to be a sounding board to help craft the ideas that others bring to make sure that we can execute them, and do those things. So uh, I think those are mostly the big ones. There's enough repetition to kind of get a feel for what you're doing, but it's never the same every day. So it's always interesting.
You're also in charge of all the pre-game stuff, aren't you? Like the first pitches, the anthem, all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't schedule all of it, but I'm the one down on the field kind of coordinating it. It helps to have someone with a title that when things don't go right, you can tell people where to go, and then they act like they know what's going on. It reduces the tension. If manager doesn't like where people are standing while we're waiting for first pitches, or the umpires need something when it comes out, or something like that, it's not rocket science to get people to go out in the right order to throw out first pitches. But every once in a while, when we've got lots of different activities, it helps that all the other people, the visiting manager, our guys, the umpires, know that someone's down there that has a little bit of feel and experience for what's going on, and we can improvise when we need to, and not get everybody flustered.
Who picks the people who sing the national anthem? I suppose that's by audition. So do you pick them?
I do not. Amanda Dale on our staff takes all the submissions. We do an audition day in March, and people send in auditions online. We have 75 home games, and we usually have 130 to 140 people throw their hat in the ring, and that doesn't even count the school groups and things. For the day games early in the year, when they're going to bring their group out and have their choir sing the anthem, and so we are blessed and challenged with lots of choices when it comes to that, which is the right problem to have. But it's then a big puzzle to identify the 90 people that can carry the tune and are willing, and then figure out what day they're not on vacation and can take off of work and be here and do all of those things to make sure you get all the dates covered. But she does a really good job with that.
I've been pleasantly surprised by the quality of the people who sing the national anthem here.
Yeah, there's lots of talented people all over the place. My oldest was active in show choir in high school before she went on to college, and it is amazing how many talented young people are in the metro area when we would go to those competitions. And most of the schools have 75 to 100 kids in multiple groups, and the performances that they do, and that's just one age group. So when you take them, and the way the community is growing, there's lots of talent around central Iowa in lots of different ways.
How has minor league baseball changed during the time you've been in professional baseball?
Oh, I guess the simplest way that I could put it is the cycle of there used to be a mindset that you wanted to have as many different players as you could in an organization and then let them play as much as possible and let the cream rise to the top to see who the big leaguers were and try to develop a champion. And now I think that there is uh, less desire for volume and the reliance on data and video and metrics to try to quantify what makes a good baseball player has changed the strategy of the reduction of teams, the reduction of the draft, using spring training complexes and the labs, as they call them, to improve technique and measurables and things. Uh, the way the way former players who ran front offices for a long time thought about finding, identifying, and developing talent, and how really smart academic people who don't have the on the field the experience at the highest level that are in charge of most major league front offices these days think about identifying and developing talent to the highest level is a much different approach. I don't think one is right or one is wrong. The fun part of it is the human element for me, and so I think the best competitors with the best talent make the best big leaguers, and no matter which system you have, that should usually produce that. But I guess that's the way I would sum up how the game has changed, and I think that will probably come back again a little bit. I keep close tabs while I follow the Cubs certainly, and my family grew up Cub fans, and that's been a nice connection here in my career. I paid close attention to what the Phillies are doing with Sam Fold as their general manager, getting to know him and when he was a player here and watching the way he played. He wasn't a launch angle, he wouldn't be a guy that was highly valued in this day and age, but he was a really successful part of as a major league player. And he's also a Stanford graduate and supremely smart as all the rest of them that come from all the different backgrounds that have. And I think the more success that the Phillies have with his influence, the more opportunity the game has to find that middle ground between the way we were taught it growing up in terms of a competitive sport, and then how we can use the information and the technology to enhance it, and not to dominate it, and find that sweet spot. And I have a lot of confidence that Sam will have a voice that would be respected to help do that in the industry. And so I'm pleased that they're doing well to that regard, because I do think there's probably a happy medium we could settle back to ideally from here, but that's a slow process.
I sure hope you're right because I think me myself, I think there's way too much emphasis on analytics, but that's just my opinion.
I think I was a math double major at Miami in probability and statistics, so I like the numbers and I like understanding how those things go. But the first thing that I learned my first year in minor league baseball, getting to travel with the team and be around the team, was I could have had all the talent of Babe Ruth, and I would have been a terrible professional baseball player, because the way my brain works with numbers and looking at trends and predicting, you get out ahead and you look for results before you focus and being in the moment of making the things happen. There's a healthy amount of ignorance that it takes to be a great baseball player in the day to day, and the failure that you experience in the game. And I think that there's a misunderstanding that analytics guarantee outcomes. Nothing guarantees anything that happens in the moment. There are good tools to understand over 162 games what is likely to be expected, but we didn't really need high level algorithms to know that over time if you followed the game on a daily basis. But there's always things to learn, and I would never say that analytics doesn't have a place in the game. I think the Moneyball thing, everybody refers to Moneyball about analytics. And Moneyball was an entertaining movie and a well written book and an interesting read, but it really eliminated Mark Mulder, Barry Zito, and Tim Hudson from the conversation. They were never mentioned as to why the Oakland A's were really good uh, as part of that. And the point of Moneyball was really market inefficiency. It was Billy Beane looking for what was the trait of players that weren't getting paid a lot in free agency, but were good and could build a winning team, in that moment, he identified it as on base percentage. It shouldn't be on base percentage from now until the end of time. There will always be ebbs and flows of any good business does that. If you've come up with a new innovative idea and everybody copies it, then you need to come up with a new innovative idea to separate you from your competition. And we kind of got stuck on base percentage and some of the Moneyball concepts here from a public consumption because it's so much slower to try to keep up. So I think it's hard to understand. The game doesn't have to be that hard, and I hope we value the competition. I think there's something special about Dylan Cease wanting to finish the no hitter and being allowed to do that and having that moment, even if the analytics said he should probably take him out after 7 innings. That's what's engaging to people, and you have to sell tickets and get viewers and do all the things to sustain the game. And I think what we value most about baseball, at least what I think, is you don't have to have won the genetic lottery to be a great baseball player like you do to be a great football or basketball player. If you stand next to anybody who plays in the NBA or the NFL, you know that you never had any chance to pursue that profession. If you stand next to a Major League Baseball, there might be physical things about you that are that are different than them. It's a skill game. So I think that you know, as long as we continue to value the competition and the excitement of not knowing what's going to happen and accepting that, the game has survived a lot, and it will survive this little era that we're into, and things will adjust again.
I'm also worried that the contraction of minor league baseball is hurting the overall game because that's fewer people who get to see real live baseball players in their towns or communities. I've done a lot of baseball research for the book and otherwise, and teams 40, 50 years ago had 10, 15 minor league teams. I think the Cardinals at one time had 20 some minor league teams. I mean, I don't expect 20 anymore, but it'd be nice if they had maybe 6 or 7, not 4.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's more than just the commissioner's office and the owners impacting that, though. The 20 years ago, I had a conversation with a really smart player who came out of Northwestern that was with me in Burlington, that was playing for the Royals. He was a shortstop in college that they converted to a sidearm relief pitcher, and he ended up getting to AAA. And we had a good conversation one day in batting practice, and because he asked me my opinion about what what did I think about the players having their own union in the minor leagues, because that's a very new development. And we had I said, it would be your right to do that. And I think it's always a good conversation to have and explore on your side. I said, what you probably have to ask yourself as a player and then as a group of players is, what's more important, having a uniform and having a chance to compete, or getting cold cuts instead of peanut butter and jelly in the clubhouse, or whatever your complaint is about the minor league lifestyle or the pay. Being a minor league baseball player isn't meant to be a 20-year career. You don't get paid very much, but you bet on yourself. I didn't get paid very much to get started in my career either, but I bet on myself for something that I wanted to do, and you make it. And then, it sounded like a little bit of the get off my lawn kind of guy in the back of my day thing. I realized, I said, but I told him, I said, with your story, you wouldn't be here today. A converted shortstop that's a sidearm reliever. If there was a union, the number of opportunities will shrink because the benefits and the pay and things will grow for the people that are on the inside. And so, what's more important? The fact that you are here today in a uniform, and every couple of days, you're going to get a chance to go out there and try to get hitters out. And if you do that often enough, you could end up in the big leagues. I said, is that opportunity more important than what your current circumstances that you feel that they are fair, unfair, whatever that, and I want to caveat that a little bit by saying there were some things about minor league lifestyles happening in certain places, not every place, that were unacceptable. We could have done better to middle that a little bit too as an industry. So I'm not saying that there was no legitimate conversation to be had about the treatment of minor league players. There's a middle ground here that I'm trying to get to, and he agreed. It was more important to have the uniform and the chance to compete than it was, because the payoff was being in the big leagues. And if you get at 19, if you spend 2 or 3 years in the minor leagues, even at 21, by the time you get to 25, you better be in a position to go to the big league soon, or you better have prepared yourself to have another option in your life. And then you got a lot of years ahead of you to earn and raise a family and do all the things, and you make your priorities. It's no one's God-given right to be a professional baseball player, but that's every generation has its own thoughts and ideas on that, and so there's a lot of things on the player side of this equation that is contributing to the way the industry has been reformed, on top of the analytics and the different approaches and all the things. That's not the only piece that's impacting where we are as a game.
It's interesting going back to the 20s, 30s. Before that, players would spend 10, 15, close to 20 years in the minor leagues. You never see that now, but they did back then.
But that was an era where making any money was nearly impossible. It was a different expectation of quality of life. Now you've got, quite frankly, most of the American born baseball players are coming from families of some sort of comfortable level of living to affluence because of travel ball and the equipment and all of the things that go along with it. So their aspirations of what they need to live, the minor league players that played 20 years back in the Depression and World War eras didn't need Starbucks in their life and all the other things that these guys are accustomed to having. So, and I don't say that makes anybody better or worse. It's just the realistic conditions that they were in the places they were found, the expectations of what my lifestyle should be outside of being a baseball player. I think for those past eras, being a baseball player was the only consideration of their lifestyle, and everyone these days, baseball players and everyone else. I see it with my own kids. There's a different level of expectation of how you live as time goes on and the world keeps getting more and more modern.
How have the pitch clock, the three batter rule for relief pitchers, the bigger bases, the automatic balls and strikes, how have they changed the game? And it's a change for the better?
Yeah, I think the pitch clock, we got it 5 years ago and it was never enforced, so it never made a difference. Once they started enforcing it, it did increase the pace of the game and things. And I think there was a desire from the general baseball public that the games contain more action and be a little bit shorter. So I think that's been the most beneficial part. The three batter rule, I like personally, just because I think in order to be a major league baseball player, you need to be able to do more than one thing really well. So if all you can do is hit a lefty or get a lefty out, or if that's your only role, that uh, I don't think that makes you a major league player in my own opinion. So I like the fact that you now have to have a well-rounded enough skill set to do multiple things right to earn your time on the field as a major league baseball player. I think the bigger base thing has been essentially a nothing because it has not, because of the analytics, the models have not caught up to. It's supposed to incent the stolen base attempt. And then if there's more attempts, you're going to be more successful. But they're not attempting more steals by and large than they were with the smaller bases because there's a mindset about extra base hits and slug and all those kinds of things. So I think that has been, maybe it's helped a little bit from a safety standpoint and giving the middle infielders a little bit more room to work and turn into double play and being safe and those kinds of things. But in terms of strategy and gameplay, I think that one's probably been the least impactful.
What about automatic balls and strikes? How do you like that in the challenge system? You think that's worth keeping?
Yeah, I think they lean heavily to the challenge system because it gives a little bit of backup to the umpire and to the player. Most of them are really, really good most of the time. So it allows an opportunity to get rid of the glaring mistake that happens from time to time. The human element, I think, our embracing of the gambling culture in professional sports of all kinds demands that you don't have an outcome that could be provable to be incorrect stand. I don't think we tolerate that in our society as fans or executives because of now I've got $50 on that potentially, and I can see that call was wrong, and now it's taking money out of my pocket legally, and things. I think that's a strong undercurrent in why all of those things exist, as they've expanded the ways to grow the game and the profitability of the game, and all that goes along with it. I obviously don't participate as a baseball employee, so that's just an outside observation, for one of the other reasons for driving that. So I think when the technology exists and we're all walking, it's no different than, I think the challenge system and automatic balls and strikes is the next evolution, because it's just like all of us checking the weather app on our phone and not waiting for the meteorologist in town who's trained to tell us whether it's going to rain or not. Everybody thinks that they know now whether it's going to rain. And this is just kind of an extension of that, I think, it would be my analogy.
Do you think we'll see the day when we don't even have human umpires or a human home plate umpire and this all be called by the computer? But I guess somebody would have to relay the signal.
Yeah, there's probably 100 things that the home plate umpire is in charge of, and calling balls and strikes is just one of them. Somebody's always going to have to call out and safe. There'll be no way that a camera could relay that kind of information at the plate. Someone has to be in charge of um, uh, administering the lineup cards and substitutions, and doing all of those things. Somebody's got to still be able to go out and break up a conference at the mound. They're not going to pay attention to the timer. It's like the Oscars. They put a timer on the speech, and the speech, they're going to talk as long as they want. Somebody's got to be in charge of keeping things on track. So the balls and strikes part, and the umpires that I talk to, because the technology exists, the good ones like the fact that the technology confirms when they're doing a really good job. They don't look at it as looking over their shoulder for the couple of times they miss it. They like the fact that now there's a system that says, yeah, this guy, this guy or gal, that we're seeing more of an influx of female umpires, which is a good thing to grow the game. When they're doing a good job, that helps confirm it. And I think the old adage that the umpire's done a great job if you never say his name, in a social media world, nobody wants a job where nobody ever says your name. So I think they like the fact that they get credit as well as blame with this system from time to time.
Why do you think Des Moines has been so successful in drawing more than 19 million fans since 1969, even though it's the smallest AAA market?
Well, in my experience, not being a native and living in some bigger cities, and then in smaller towns, Des Moines is probably the most positive place I've ever been around on an extended basis, where people freely admit that they enjoy living here and they like their neighbors, and there's a sense of mutual respect, and things that I didn't encounter growing up in a bigger city, and all the time. So I think that there's a pride that goes with the hometown team that is part of that. Uh, I think Iowa's probably only second to Texas in places that I've been for pride in your home area, and Iowa does it much more humbly than Texas does, in taking that on. But I feel that the emotion is probably the same on the inside. I think that Des Moines is well situated, that it's had some sort of growth where we're adding new people, and it's becoming quicker now in the metro over the last few years. But it's a diversified economy, so it doesn't, in Burlington, when factories started closing, income failed and people struggled, and you didn't choose entertainment options. Des Moines, from my understanding and what I've learned being here, has always been pretty diversified and pretty well set, that to weather the big economic shifts that a lot of the country faces when you're more specialized, whether and you've got all sorts of industry within a 30-mile radius that helps keep people stable, and then keep people looking for those entertainment options. And then I give a lot of credit to Sam and Michael Gartner and the consistent leadership over a long time here, where you know what you're going to get when you come to Principal Park. Our clean, safe, fun motto is one that you can replicate season after season. You feel good about the experience that you had, whether the team wins or loses. Weather is always a variable that we watch closely, but we all complain about, but you can't control, so you deal with it the best you can. So for all of those factors, I think there's been an ability from several different ways to maintain and grow steadily over time, which is an exception to the rule when you look at most metropolitan areas. And I think the thing that I always tell people what the secret sauce is of the Iowa Cubs, other than the things I've already mentioned, is that there are three very important relationships to a minor league team: your relationship with your municipality, your relationship with your business community and your fan base, and your relationship with your major league affiliate. And very few cities around the country have healthy relationships in all three of those areas consistently over time. There are a lot of teams at war with their city and their landlord about what stadium improvements should or shouldn't be made, and who's responsible for those things. We have enjoyed a wonderful relationship with the city of Des Moines and for with regional leaders and things for a very long time, and everybody has, uh, in great part, been on the same page about when it's time to make upgrades and how we share the burden and the benefit of the way those things come. So that's really important. When I was in Burlington, we had a new major league affiliate every 2 years for 20 years before we got the Royals to stay. And we redid the field and built an indoor batting cage in 2001. The fact that the Cubs have been the affiliate here since 1981, and then the Cubs brand on top of that, the consistency of what uh, people look and follow and understand when they come makes a huge difference. You don't know how good that is until you've been to a city where that doesn't happen all the time. So the ability to be consistent, and then with the status of the brand of the Chicago Cubs on top of it is a tremendous advantage in this part of the country. And there are people that cancel their season tickets every year, but there are new people that buy season tickets every year. And there are people that drop their outfield sign every year, and there are new people that buy that outfield sign every year. But most of the objections are, my life has changed, my business has changed. We don't get a lot of, we don't want to be associated with the Iowa Cubs from fans or businesses. We enjoy a good, solid relationship that we're not perfect. We make some mistakes. We try to own up to them and treat people right. And that's kind of a Midwest thing. That's a Des Moines thing. That's not an Iowa Cub thing. And the consistency of all of those relationships allows you to make small changes to keep getting better without trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think if you're going to have long-standing success, and the way that chart has grown, Principal Park is the oldest facility in AAA baseball right now. We don't think you'd guess that if you walked in today. A lot of minor league teams build a new stadium, jack up the prices, have a 3 to 5 year honeymoon period, and then everybody stops coming after that. That's not a model that we've followed. We've tried to be more consistent than flashy, and I think that's fit the sensibility and the mindset of our community and our staff, and it's made for a good pairing.
What makes working for the Iowa Cubs special?
I think all of those things. I like to tell the story. My first day trying to make sales in Burlington, I made a cold call and said, "Hi, I'm Randy with the Burlington Bees. I'd like to talk to you about coming out to the ballpark and being involved." And the person on the other end of that line said, "I will never come to another Burlington Bees game. The general manager in 1983 was rude to my grandmother, and we'll never set foot in that place again." And the first day that I made calls as a member of the Iowa Cubs in 2008, I called someone and said, "Hi, I'm Randy with the Iowa Cubs." And the person on the other end of the phone said, "Hey, Randy, how are you today?" It's my first day on the job. They had no idea who I was. But when you tell people that you're associated with the Iowa Cubs, or people know that you're associated with the Iowa Cubs, for the most part, that's a favorable thing in your corner. That people want to ask you how the team is. They want to ask you about the ballpark. You know, the most common response I get is, "How's the season going? Man, the kids have been busy with Little League. We need to get out to a game." So not everybody comes as often as we'd like them to. A lot of them aren't coming as often as they would like to. So my job is to create urgency over 6 months and 75 dates to try to get you out here a little bit more often. But very few people tell me that they hate their experience being at the ballpark. That doesn't mean we get everything exactly right all the time. But again, we try to deal with those things as they come up and be consistent. And it's really a cool thing to be uh, associated with something that people feel something like that, feel that positive about, and have such good feelings about when we talk to them.
What would you like your legacy to be with the Iowa Cubs? Or have you thought much about that? You're still young, so you shouldn't have to worry about a legacy, I guess.
I think there's a common sports phrase of "Don't be the guy that follows the guy,"
Yeah.
and I'm next in line behind Sam Burnaby. Uh, so if and when I ever get the opportunity someday to uh, play an even bigger part in shaping the future of this organization, I would hope that we could be the LA Dodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that I could be the Bill Cowher to his Chuck Noll, or the and be another person that could, I don't think I'm young enough to be 40 plus years the way Sam has been. I'll start too late, but if you can look back on the history of the Iowa Cubs 20 years from now and say there's been two general managers for the last 60 years, I would be really proud of that.
Yeah, that would be incredible. If you hadn't pursued a career in professional baseball, the front office end of it, what else would you be doing now, do you think?
I've tried, when I was in college, I coached little leaguers at the Boys and Girls Club, and none of them were my kid. I got involved in that, and I absolutely loved that. And then I've tried to coach my daughters as much as I possibly can as they've grown up in the things that they do. And I love being around young people, and being around uh, to help them enjoy something that I've gotten such a kick out of. Uh, my brother's a teacher. Um, I think that's kind of part of who we are. I'm not very good at fixing things, or I don't have a lot of technical skills. So I'd probably be a math teacher and a baseball coach if I wasn't doing this. Would be my guess.
Okay. Last question. What's your advice for someone who wants to get into the front office end of professional baseball?
I use a line that I heard in an interview with Conan O'Brien, of all people, where he was the subject, not the interviewer. Um, he said the best advice he got, which I think summed it up really well, was if you really want to do something, go where they do that, and then do whatever they'll let you do. His TV example was, if you want to be on television, go to a television station and do whatever they'll let you do, whether it's hold the cord for the camera or sweep the floor or whatever it is, that you can understand what it is and what it isn't. And I think for professional sports, that's especially true. That you know, our groundskeeper has to be a scientist. He's got to make grass grow when it's 55 and flurrying, and when it's 93 and humid over the course of a 6 month season. And my video people have very technical skills for specialized equipment to help put on things. But for the most of us, this is a people business, and your ability to communicate and your ability to relate with people and your ability to be creative and nimble, that's not a classroom kind of thing. So as important as my academics and as proud as I was as being a good student growing up, uh, go find somewhere and be in the ballpark. And that's why our internship programs are so important. And if you want to work in football, we're doing the same things. We're just breaking it up into innings instead of quarters. What the people are doing for hockey and for basketball and all those things, we're all doing the same kinds of activities and chasing the same kinds of goals. It's just different shaped equipment and timing of things to try to fit all those things into. So if you want to work in baseball and the only job you can get is with a hockey team, take it, and then and keep going. There's no substitute for being in the middle of it and understanding how people behave, what the questions they ask are, and getting used to being able to think on your feet and do all the things that we do just to make people feel like being at the ballpark was worth their time.
Well, thanks, Randy, for spending part of your day with us. And speaking of baseball, as I have a book signing scheduled for 1 to 4 p.m. Saturday, August 3rd, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after that at the Barnes & Noble on University Avenue in West Des Moines. And then I have one August 29th, and this is going to be interesting. It's really before the Iowa Cup game against Memphis at In Tandem Arts and Authors Gallery and Bookstore in the Plaza at 3rd and Walnut downtown. It's a fairly new store, and I'll be there from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. talking about the book, signing books, and then the ICUP game will begin 8 minutes later. So then you can run and go catch the game. So I told Sam that, and maybe we could work that into a 2-for-1 deal. I don't know, but it's just kind of a natural fit there. So, but we'll worry about that later. So in addition to today's podcast with Randy, hopefully we'll be talking to Alex Cohen next week. I've already talked to Sam Burnaby and John Leopa, the great Iowa baseball historian. Of course, then Randy's will be up soon too. So, and these are going to be on YouTube, I found out, as well as other areas. So eventually you'll be able to go to YouTube and find it all on YouTube. So with that, we've spent about 51 minutes here. Thank you very much for your time, Randy. I love doing this, and you're a great guest. See you around the ballpark.
Nothing better than talking baseball, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, goodbye.
Thanks, Steve.